He's a centre half. He's a number 4.
I can already tell this is going to be an unbearable episode of the Early Bath Football Podcast. Episode 36 is going to be unbearable, but we move. That's why no one's here. It's just me and Chris.
No wonder why we've lost a subscriber.
Yeah, this is the
Think it
first
like
thing.
that.
We've lost a subscriber. I don't want to blame the Russians. I don't know who we're blaming here, but we've lost a subscriber. Whoever you are, I don't know how we're going to figure this out, but we will find you and make you resubscribe.
It might be one of those bots that we had early on where they were commenting
That's a
those random
shame.
coded messages.
The fact that is, we were away for 2 weeks. Maybe that's probably why. But anyway, we're back. It's, we are back. Oh no, let me put this banner on. There you go. We're fully back. We're now on 68 subscribers. We've gone down one. That's so annoying. But we'll do a little spiel at the end to say resubscribe. But anyway, we are back. It's episode 36 of the Early Bath Football Podcast. Sorry we've been away. Been super, super busy with work and life admin and things like that. But we're back today to talk about all things Carabao Cup, all things Premier League, and all things Russia and Oxford United. Because we can say, chairman's prerogative, we can talk about Oxford United. I'm joined by Ed. Hello, Edward. How are you?
I'm very well. Had a good weekend.
Very smug. You're very smug, aren't you?
indeed.
Anything happen over the weekend?
Not really. No, nothing major.
Interesting. Cool.
Just this.
Joined by Jürgen and co. Chris, hello. How are you?
I'm still a little bit. I'm still suffering a bit from the weekend. I'm not going to lie, but
Is there still essences of puke on your Aberdeen shirt there behind you?
I don't think there is. I think it's all been washed off in that.
Do you want to tell the listeners and watchers what you got up to over the weekend or not?
Went on a classic football shirt night with my football club, and couldn't handle my beers. So please drink responsibly, and like I did at the weekend.
I was going to say, Chris, you could have gone through what you did on Sunday because I imagine it was very little.
Yeah,
I got either day. Yeah. Chris had a game of beers and lost. We've all done it. We've all lost a game of beers before. You rarely win versus the beers. So...
4-0 down after 11 minutes, weren't you, Chris? Came in bed by 11.
Yeah. I was, yeah.
In bed by 11 on a Saturday night. Wow. 18-year-old Chris Olive would never have done that. Him in the Red Lion he'd be fuming if he saw you.
He wouldn't have gone out to 11, to be fair.
Oh, what a legend. But, we're old now, Chris, so what can you do?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's talk football and not Chris's crippling battle with potential lack of, handling his beer. I was going to say alcoholism, but you're not an alcoholic. That would have been a complete insight into your life. That's not true, by the way.
This is pure vodka in here. It's not Volvic. It's not Volvic pineapple and orange. It's pure vodka in here.
God, I really could have really sold you down the drain there in terms of your personality and people who might not even know you. But anyway, let's talk about the first thing, which was the main thing over the weekend. The Carabao Cup Final, the League Cup Final, the Milk Cup Final, the Worthington Cup Final, Carling Cup. I can't think of any more names for the League Cup.
Was it Coca-Cola at one point?
Coca-Cola at one point, Mickey Mouse.
In recent years.
Has
had a little resurrection since Man City decided to stop winning it all the time.
Exactly. So let's talk about that. And, obviously Ed's a Liverpool fan, if you hadn't already noticed. But let's talk about that and let's talk about the game. Personal thoughts. What a game, by the way. The fact that it was 0-0 and it literally could have been like 4-4 or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe like 7-7. But it was somehow 0-0. There was loads of talking points. Mason Mount couldn't hit a barn door. I was going to say a barn. He probably couldn't hit a barn, to be honest, let alone the door. And I don't know, the whole Kepa Mendy thing, which we'll go on to after. Let's talk about the game first, and then we'll talk about the goalkeeping situation and the thoughts of Jamie Redknapp as well, which has caused a lot of controversy. We'll talk about that afterwards. But Ed, Liverpool are the League Cup winners of 2022. The 2021-2022 season. How do you feel?
Great. Yeah, it's a good one to
Good.
get under the belt. We've not won it for 10 years, I think it is. So it's a good
Wow.
one to win early in the season. Well, Man City won it for about 4 years on the trot, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? I think we touched on it a minute ago. It had a reputation for a while as being a Mickey Mouse trophy. I think it's still one of the competitions where particularly the big sides usually put out their squad players early in the competition, and then as it gets on, you get to the business end, they start to bring out the big guns. But I think it's been a good competition this year. I think it's always nice when Man City go out early because they obviously have the most ridiculously talented squad in the league.
So good at
So,
handballing, aren't they?
so good. We'll come on to
So
that
good.
as well.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, it was a really good game. I thought it was
I thought it was a
one of the
very
best
good game.
one of the best 0-0 cup finals I've ever seen. And like you said, on another day, it could have easily been about 4-2 to Chelsea. I think, like you said, Mason Mount had 2, which he really should have scored. Christian Pulisic had 1 early on. He should have done a lot better with. I think if he puts it anywhere other than straight at Kelleher, it's a goal. And then Lukaku's, there's been a lot of discussion I've seen today and yesterday about whether it was actually onside or offside. It's a ridiculously close decision. But again, on another day, that could have been a goal as well. I think watching the game, I was very frustrated because we had 2 periods, one in each half, where we dominated, kept the ball. Chelsea looked like they were running out of steam, and we didn't make it count. And then Chelsea would come back into it, usually through Kante, who's just a ridiculous player. And then, they looked really dangerous. I think from probably about the 70th minute onwards, they made a couple of changes. They brought Lukaku and Werner on. Werner, who, by the way, is utterly useless. But yeah, they changed their system slightly and were really dangerous for the rest of the game. And
Look more like scoring, especially in extra
from
time,
then
I
onwards,
thought.
it looked like Liverpool were just playing for pens, which is obviously a painful thing to be, a position to be in as a fan. But yeah, thoroughly pleased with the end result. Some ridiculously good penalties. I don't know what you thought about the game, Chris, but yeah, high levels throughout the game.
Go on, Chris. What were your thoughts on the game?
Well, I mean, I completely agree with you two. Like, it was probably one of the best 0-0s you'd ever watch in your lifetime, to be honest. Because it was end to end, and like it was also one of them games where you couldn't all right, I'd picked up Werner, to be fair, but you couldn't really pick up any players and say, they weren't good enough. Like I thought pretty much every player on the pitch for both teams put in solid performances.
Mm-hmm.
And Kovacic was very good yesterday.
Yeah,
he was everywhere.
He was quality. Both the starting goalkeepers. I emphasise starting goalkeepers.
Good.
They both made big saves at big times during the game. I mean that double save that Mendy done. All right, he should have done better with the first one, but the second one, how he's got back up and down quickly to react. It was Mane, wasn't it? His Senegalese compatriot. That he's
got a score there, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's got a score.
Mane's got a score there, but it was an incredible save from Mendy, and like you said, like Mason Mount, he had 2 gilt-edged chances. Really, I mean, the second one you did feel a bit for him because he got it stuck underneath him, but he still managed to drag it, but it obviously just hit the post and that. But even the defenders for both teams, I thought Chelsea's back three, Chalobah, Silva, and Rudiger especially were solid. I mean, Rudiger. I mean, to be fair,
he's mad, isn't he? I think he's mad. I think he's crazy.
Box of frogs.
Yeah. I mean, he managed to keep Salah relatively quiet during the game yesterday, and then obviously Liverpool's back for again. The quality you're going to get with them, and you could argue Matip was a bit unlucky with the disallowed goal. I mean, I think they have come to the right decision. To be fair, I thought Stuart Atwell had a good game. People don't really talk about the referees. I actually generally thought Stuart Atwell had a good game. He actually let things go, which you kind of want to see in football, because football is getting to the stage where it's becoming a bit non-contact. Like any contact, people just throw themselves to the ground. They get free kicks, but he did let a lot of things go. Because again, on another day, you could argue Kate is quite lucky to stay on the pitch as well for that challenge he'd done on Chalobah. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a good game. And then there was some good penalties. and one not so good one. Let's just put it that way. In the penalty shoot.
Yeah, just on the refereeing, Chris, because I think we're going to come on to it a little bit in a minute. But yeah, like you said, really well refereed. I always like it in the big games where they let it go a bit more.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you're stopping every 2 minutes, it just becomes like a American football game. It's horrendous. And yeah, I think they got all the big decisions right. As much as it pained me when they ruled out Joel Matip's header for offside.
What was that ruled out again? I remember the goal. I can't remember why it was ruled out.
Van Dijk blocked off Reece James,
Yes,
and while he was doing it, he was stood in an offside position.
It was
so
offside.
although he didn't directly impact the play, he obviously blocked off Reece James, who, if Van Dijk wasn't stood there, probably would have got back and blocked the ball.
Yeah.
From when Mane headed it. So yeah, it was ruled out.
And do we know why? I know Thiago was injured in the warm-up or ruled out in the warm-up. Do we know why?
They didn't really announce it, but I think they've said on Twitter today he had a tight hamstring and they didn't want to risk it.
That was a huge miss. He's a very good player. There's a lot of social media of the Thiago turn in the last couple of weeks, where it's just people doing highlights of Thiago turning. But let's talk about a section which I have simply labelled Kepa. He obviously got brought on with about a minute to go, in the hope that he would save the penalties. And this is not an odd thing. Chelsea did it for the Super Cup, and they won the Super. Was it the Super Cup?
Mm-hmm.
It was a Super Cup, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And they won the Super Cup, and Kepa did his thing, did his job. And there's a lot of previous examples. Louis van Gaal was probably the most famous one I can remember, with
the World Cup,
Tim Krul coming on for Stekelenburg, I think it was at the time. So this thing does happen, and Jamie Redknapp,
it happens every time it happens. Yeah,
it happens every time it happens, and it's no different from bringing on a striker to score a penalty. You bring on a goalkeeper to potentially save penalties. I subscribe to the idea that it's a good idea, because realistically, Kepa's got into the changing room. He spent 15, 20 minutes on a PowerPoint with the club analyst or whatever it is. Could be PowerPoint, could be pieces of paper, who knows? But, it'll look where Salah's last 5 penalties have gone, whoever it was. So he's actually and he's ready for a penalty shootout as well.
Yep.
And a bit more fresher, whether that makes a massive difference. Owen would probably say more things as part of the goalkeepers union, but, Mendy's just played a full game. It's very tiring to play 120 minutes, and, I don't know. I just feel like it's not the worst idea in the world to bring on someone who is literally ready to, and in the frame of mind for a penalty shootout. Jamie Redknapp, if anyone saw the Sky Sports analysis after the game, was just like, hope it puts it to bed that that's a stupid idea. And he said, you know what, Liverpool won it. Kelleher didn't. Liverpool did the opposite. They didn't bring on a goalkeeper. And they won it. But technically, Kelleher didn't even save a penalty either. So, that's sort of where his argument falls down. And obviously, Kepa didn't save a penalty, but I don't think he was expected to take one either.
No.
No. And also, if you're Kepa, why are you smashing it? No offense. I'd just say, just get it on target. Yeah, just get it on target. He's had 2 touches in the game, and both of them are goal kicks. Which was what I thought. But Ed, on Kepa, let's discuss what your views are, apart from the fact that it was great.
I don't have an issue with it. I understand the logic behind doing it, like you've just said.
Yeah.
Somebody who's completely fresh, has had time to fairly recently, like you said, during the game, can go back to the changing rooms and do their research and see, right, who's on the pitch at the minute, who are going to be their penalty takers, where do they go?
Yeah.
There is logic behind it. I think as an opposing supporter, I think I was quite vocal on the chat about this yesterday. As an opposing supporter, it does fill you with a little bit of dread, because it's mind games, isn't it? It's mind games. The players taking the penalties will know that Kepa has just come on and will know exactly where you've put all the rest of your penalties. Just seeds that little bit of extra doubt in a player's mind, in your team's mind. So when it doesn't work like it did yesterday, it is so sweet. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It could not have gone any worse. He didn't save a single one, and he was the one that missed the winning penalty. So
I said in the chat, imagine if Kepa scores. I called Kepa scoring the winning
opposite.
penalty, and
Yeah.
I did not get that right at all. Shows what I know about football.
Yeah. So yeah, I completely understand the logic behind it, but it was great to see it not pay off yesterday, especially when they're playing against my team. Just something you touched on then, actually, about when you bring on a player to take a penalty, like a specialist penalty taker.
Yeah.
I'd actually argue that bringing on a goalkeeper for the penalty shootout is a more logical option than bringing a player on to take a penalty.
Please
Because
explain.
one thing I had an issue with in the Euros final when England
Yeah.
played Italy, they brought on, I think it was Rashford and Sancho.
It was, wasn't it?
Right at the end, they didn't give them enough time to get into the game, get a touch of the ball. Because you think when you're warming up as a professional footballer, you don't actually touch the ball until you get on the pitch. There's nowhere for you to kick a ball about like there is when you play in Sunday League or whatever. So when you get on the pitch, the first time you're touching the ball is when you come on. And they gave them like a couple of minutes, whereas I think Liverpool brought on Milner yesterday at the start of injury time.
Yeah, something like that.
Extra time, sorry, or maybe just before that. He's obviously a clear penalty taker. They brought on Jota, who took one of the first. No, he took number 6, didn't he? But yeah, if you bring on specialist penalty takers, you've got to bring them on a bit earlier so they can actually get a feel for the game. I know they're professional footballers and they're obviously unbelievably talented, but coming onto a pitch cold and running up and taking a penalty, having not touched the ball at all, is a much more difficult skill, I think, than being a goalkeeper and just trying to get in the way of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Go on, Chris.
No, I do agree with that logic. And that, like, obviously, it's one of them as well that if Kepa was the hero, then
no one would be talking about this at all, would they?
Well, the pundits would be praising
the opposite.
They'd be like, "Oh, it's the best. Tuchel's an absolute genius. What a superb decision that is." I mean, obviously, it is interesting because you obviously you have to go back to the African Cup of Nations. Obviously, that was only earlier this month that Senegal won on penalties, and Mendy was the goalkeeper in that penalty shootout. So you can sort of argue it and say, well, Mendy's already been part of a winning penalty shootout as well. I mean, all right, Kepa was part of the whole Super Cup and that, but obviously Mendy's was more recent. But I'm sure it was agreed before the game as well. I'm sure Tuchel said, look, if this game goes to penalties, I want Kepa to be, in goal for that. And I'm guessing like Mendy was like, yeah, no, that's fine, completely understand, because
he didn't kick up much of a fuss, did he, when he came on? Yeah.
He did do what Kepa done the 2019 final. I mean, that's another hilarious thing to like this story. That like obviously you go back 2019 when Kepa's like, no, I don't want to come off. No, I'm not coming off. And then again, he didn't save any penalties, and Chelsea lost the final. And then he gets brought on to be like the specialist like penalty saver. I mean, to be fair, you got to hold your hands up and say, apart from one penalty, which I think was Konate's
high quality shootout, wasn't it?
Yeah, apart from Konate's, which he got a hand to it, but it literally just went through him. Apart from that one, like the others, he didn't have no. I mean, I got to admit, I love a bit of S-housery in football. I love Van Dijk's reaction.
Very good, wasn't it?
Like literally put in the corner where Kepa was standing, and
he stared him out, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he said something to him as well. Like it was brilliant because again, like Kepa was trying to play mind games with the Liverpool players, like just. He was delaying. He was like standing pretty much on the penalty spot and like delaying.
Here's a question for you two as neutrals.
Go on.
So obviously, the penalties were taken at the Liverpool end, and they were obviously giving the Chelsea players a lot of stick when they were taking theirs. And I think there was 3 of them that tried like shushed the crowd when they scored theirs.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? And having now realised that they've lost the game, what do you think to that? Because as a Liverpool fan, that's great to see that they've like shushed the crowd and then not gone on to win the game.
I feel like you've done your bit though, right? With Reece James, he's done his bit. He's walked up. He's taken a decent penalty. I think he's got every right to shush the crowd.
Yeah.
It's Kepa that's let him down.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
It's interesting you say that because I know you're not Reece James's biggest fan.
No, I just think he's awful. I just think he's a very average player. I think he's not even the top 4 English right backs.
Oh, big statement. Big statement.
It's Trent, it's Tariq Lamptey, it's Sam Long, it's
Kyle
would you
Walker.
count Kyle Walker as a yeah, we'll count Kyle
Yeah,
Walker.
of course.
Kyle Walker. That's my opinion.
Tyreek
anyway.
Mitchell.
He's great. He
Yeah,
got me
he's a
so many
left-
much
Trippier.
fantasy football. Exactly, and that's on the S. Housery point. I do really enjoy. I think I saw a clip of Salah when Jorginho was
Saying
taking
don't
up.
jump.
It was don't jump, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
I said this in the chat yesterday with the boys. I want to see more when the player walks towards the penalty spot and the player walking back. I want to see more. I want to see someone saying your shoelace is untied, your hair's out of place, or your boots don't look very nice. Things like that. Your shirt's untucked. I want just little mind games.
Yeah.
And Salah saying don't jump. If it was don't jump, it could be someone else.
Yeah, interesting though, because he's one that quite often does this. Like he does it
Yeah.
a lot when he's talking to other players, and he didn't do it on that occasion, which I thought was interesting. I don't know whether that was a conscious thing or not, but obviously wanted it for it to be seen.
But anyway, Ed, was Tuchel right to take Mendy off and put Kepa on? Yes or no? Do you back his decision?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I think there's an argument both sides, but like we've said, there is a logical reason for doing it. It's a psychological thing as much as anything, and I don't see why not. It's just obviously backfired. Backfired a little bit this time.
Marginal gains, isn't it? Chris, do you agree or disagree with Ed there?
No, I agree with Ed. I mean, Tom. That's the thing. Jamie Redknapp's coming out giving all that. Thomas Tuchel's won a Champions League. What's Jamie Redknapp won?
Right, let me Google it right now. Let me Google it right now. No, we're going to see whatever he's won. Everything that Jamie Redknapp
has won. Do you win the FA Cup?
He might won as a player, but he's done nothing in management. I mean, that's pretty much his dad. He's done all the management.
Frank Lampard's his cousin.
Yeah, do you not know that?
Yeah, I did know that, but just for the fans. He has won. It doesn't say a
Honours, League Cup, Charity Shield, Super Cup.
There we go. Such a small segment of his Wikipedia. I completely missed it.
Right at the bottom.
Yeah, it was right at the bottom. But anyway, put in the comments if you agree or disagree with Thomas Tuchel's decision to bring on Kepa and take off Mendy. Us three here think that Tuchel is smarter than Jamie Redknapp, but what can you do? Let's move on.
Game show. Are you smarter than Jamie Redknapp?
I'd tune in. I'd tune in to that. Anyway, let's move on to Russia. And let's just say, obviously, there's a lot going on in the world right now. And I don't know, it's just so sad. And our thoughts are definitely with Russia. Not with Russia. Well, Russian citizens, we'll say that. And there's a lot of people, a lot of brave people in Russia who are speaking out against their government's actions. And the whole Ukraine-Russia situation is crazy. It's unfathomable in a lot of instances. And I don't know, it's affecting a lot of people. And I don't know, I could talk about this for a while, but let's talk about the football aspect of it, because today Russian football clubs and the national teams, I would imagine, because I assume you women's football as well, they've been suspended by FIFA and UEFA after the country's invasion of Ukraine. So banned indefinitely. That means that the men's team won't be able to play their World Cup playoff matches next month. I think that's against Poland.
Yes. Yeah, I think Poland got a bye.
And then also Spartak Moscow have been kicked out of the Europa League. And also UEFA have ended their sponsorship with Gazprom, which is the
main sponsor.
Main energy sponsor. So that's a big thing. That's a really big thing, and I think that's happening across sport and not just football. And I think FIFA has previously ruled that Russia must complete their upcoming games in a neutral territory under the title of the Football Union of Russia without the flag and anthem.
They were trying to follow. They were trying to follow a similar tactic to the Olympics when they got done for government-funded doping. Because it was harsh on the athletes. It wasn't necessarily all their fault, because it was historical doping, not doping of athletes at the time. So they said you can still compete, you just can't compete under the Russian flag and national anthem and whatnot. So they were trying to follow a similar tactic, but I don't think that was appropriate in this case.
No, and there's obviously I saw the Zinchenko thing, and who plays for Everton? I've completely forgot his name.
Mikolenko.
Yeah.
There we go. And I also couldn't pronounce that. So thanks, Chris.
Good.
And that's happened across football. A lot of Ukrainian footballers have been given a lot of support and things like that, which is really nice to see.
Mhm.
People say don't bring politics into sport. People say that like Lewis Hamilton all the time, don't they? And things like that. And this is why I believe it should be a thing. Football has a massive place in society and in a sort of media sense. It gathers so many eyes watch football, and especially the Premier League as well. So for a message to be sent out there is huge, and it may not mean a lot in the long term, or it doesn't actually help. Maybe it doesn't help Ukraine, defend against Russian bombs and things like that. But it's putting the spotlight on Russia and making them be held accountable. I don't know if you boys have anything to add on this
I think
Russia thing.
Yeah, it's easy to be critical, isn't it, of FIFA? But I think they have been a little bit slow in making this decision. This has been going on. This has been going on for quite a long, well, not a long time, but it's not like I feel like their stance up until now has been, let's wait and see what happens, as they were expecting Russia to be like, nope, sorry, mate, like they've invaded another country, like they're completely throwing, NATO and European Union out the window.
Yeah.
You can't.
I know F1 were quite quick to react, weren't
very
they?
quick. Yeah, it seems like FIFA have been, and UEFA I think were a bit quicker. It seems like FIFA was the final one that we were waiting for a decision on. But I think they have made the right decision now. The one thing that people I feel sorry for are the players, because particularly you think of Spartak Moscow, for example. They'll have players that aren't Russian nationals that are, from overseas playing for them. And who knows, this year could have been their year to win the Europa League. I don't think they've ever won it, or not won it recently anyway. This year could have been their year, and now they've been thrown out of the competition for something that's way beyond their control.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, footballers' careers are notoriously short and can be, over in, one bad tackle, your career's over. So it's hard on the players, but yeah, I'm sure if the shoe was on the other foot, they'd be exactly the same.
Yeah, and Chris, I think let's talk about Chelsea again. I mean, Roman Abramovich has handed over. I'm pretty sure the thing is he's handed over ownership or something to I can't
Chelsea
think of the word.
Trustees or something.
Trustee. I was thinking treasure, and I was like, that's not the right word.
He's handed it over to the treasurer.
Treasurer, yeah, the treasurer, yeah. He's basically handed it over to a trust, and to get around any sort of ties or anything linked to Chelsea as his asset, because obviously part of the whole fight against Ukraine against Russia. Oh my God, I'm getting my words mixed up here. Against Russia is the sanctions and things like that. So, Chris, does that mean anything, like to Chelsea, to Roman Abramovich, to how Chelsea are going to get run?
I think it's mainly Abramovich sort of covering his own backside, if you will. And to be fair, you could argue he is helping the club out a bit, in the sense that he doesn't want Chelsea to be involved in this, because obviously
in the crossfire,
he doesn't want Chelsea to be involved in the crossfire, because let's face it, he's helped Putin. Unfortunately, he's one of his, what they call it, oligarch. They call it oligarch, yeah. And that, but yeah, obviously it's just horrible. Like just seeing the scenes of, the Ukrainian families. You got wives saying goodbye to their husbands, what could be for like the last time, and you got to praise like the likes of Zinchenko and Mikolenko. Like it was brilliant when obviously you saw them embrace before the game, and obviously the scenes at Goodison Park Saturday night where obviously they was holding the Ukrainian flags. You saw Zinchenko in tears and that, and then you got like some brave like Ukrainian, like, all right, they're not footballers, but like Alexander Usyk, he's a world champion boxer, and instead of just staying, because I think he was based in England, because obviously he was going to be preparing for a rematch with Anthony Joshua, but instead of that, he's like, no, I want to go back and fight for my country. And the same with Lomachenko
as well, wasn't it?
Vitaly Klitschko's the mayor of Kiev, which I think that's awesome. Because he is him and Vladimir, they're both legends of Ukraine in that. But But yeah. I mean, I do agree with FIFA's decision, but it's taken them far too long. I mean, the statement last night when they said, the Russian players can play, but not under Russia, just like you said, I can't remember what you said. There was going to be
under
caught,
a different flag.
and that it's like they're still playing Russia end of the day. I mean, like Ed said, you do feel sorry for the Russian players because again, that who knows when they're going to get to a World Cup again? Like this could be their best chance of getting to a world, qualifying for a World Cup for a long time, and that. So you do sort of feel sorry for their players in that sense. But at end of the day, the right decision has been made, and hopefully, like I know it's not going to happen like overnight and that, but hopefully they can come to some sort of peace and stop innocent people from dying.
I've got a small update on Roman
here we go.
Abramovich that I'm just reading on BBC from a couple of hours ago. Obviously, his statement was it just before the weekend didn't mention the Russian conflict at all, and he was heavily criticised for that statement.
Yeah.
He has been contacted by the Ukrainian officials in order to try and come up with a peaceful resolution, because I think the Ukraine and Russia have started discussions about how they can end all this conflict.
Yeah.
And he's been asked by Ukraine to be involved in that process and has been trying to help ever since, he's quoted as saying.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he's clearly acknowledged that he's been heavily criticised for what he's done with Chelsea so far, and is trying to do a bit better.
God, I mean, if the Oxford chairman was involved in World War III talks, I'd be like, wow, that's just a bit close to home, right? I feel the fact that how sort of entangled in this web Roman Abramovich is quite scary, to be honest. I don't know, but we stand with Ukraine, and hopefully, fingers crossed, something just stops all the unnecessary conflict. I must add, and it's as I said, it's scary, and you shed a tear when things happen in football, when the good things like football and society and every social media really makes me sad sometimes. Like people just act so differently and act so badly. Then you see stuff, with the fans at Goodison Park and things. It's good. It shows that there are good people, and people who have got their heads screwed on, I think, which is nice to see, because sometimes I think a lot of people with their heads who are not screwed on are the ones that come to the fore. But we'll see what happens there, and hopefully something good comes out of this, and we can go sort of back to normal, basically. Anyway,
should we move on to the Ox?
Let's move on to the Ox. The other yellow and blue in my life is Oxford United, and this is just going to be a short one because, God, I think we're going up. I really do. I really do think we're going up, but I can't take another, emotionally and physically and mentally and spiritually, I can't take another failed playoff push. I don't know about you, Chris. The last 2 seasons, got through to the final, lost. Last season, semi-finals, and lost. But we scored the most goals in the league this year. We've also conceded a hell of a lot. I think it's like over twice the amount as Rotherham in first. But 4-2 at the weekend. Obviously, last Saturday was a hugely emotional day for the club with Joey Beecham and everything that he did for the club. He sadly passed away. I think it was age like 50 or maybe 51 or something last weekend, and the club did a massive. He's arguably Oxford's greatest ever player. I never watched him play, a bit before my time, but he's just. You see that I saw so many highlights and clips of his goals and things like that, and it's just like he was unbelievable. Like he's just tricky, just good at football. Like you can't really say much more. And he's a local Oxford boy, and his transfer to West Ham for £1 million I think it was in the 90s, saved the club. Like he didn't want to go, but yeah, he literally had to save his club, and that's just like that's like a movie script sort of thing. And then he came back and he played for Swindon, and it's all crazy. I know, but it was a hugely emotional week, to be honest, for football, for Oxford United Football Club, and
it's a really
3 wins in a week.
A really interesting story, that one. I didn't know that story, and I was reading up on it, and he got sold to West Ham for £1 million, and it set, like you say, saved the club. And he was under the impression that he could stay living in Oxford. Like you said, he was born and bred in Oxford. He thought he could commute to West Ham. He didn't realise exactly where in London West Ham was, where their training ground was. Yeah. And it basically eventually transpired that he didn't want to move down there and that he couldn't do that commute. So I think fell apart after about a week, didn't it, or something like that. And then he ended up going to Swindon because he had no club. And then worked his way back to Oxford. But interesting story.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where I don't know we don't need to go into the details, but mental health played an issue, and as someone who is so loved like Joey Beecham by thousands of people associated with Oxford United, and it's just really sad. Chris, I don't know if you want to add anything from an Oxford United point of view. Ed's a Liverpool fan, so.
Yeah. No, like obviously we found out the news about Joey Beecham obviously after the Charlton game. Like Charlton,
didn't we?
Charlton was a massive high. Obviously 4-0 away win. Obviously we were
very good. We were very good.
Yeah, we were quality that day, and then obviously the news about Joey started to come through. Obviously it wasn't from like any sources, so it was kind of like, well, we're waiting here, and then obviously it was official when Oxford United announced it, and like you, obviously never watched him play. I obviously never even went to the Manor Ground and that, but like just hearing the stories from like older Oxford United fans about just watching Joey play at the Manor, and like how they said like literally every time he was on the ball, like something would happen. Like he was just that good, whether he'd nutmeg someone or. I think there was that one goal against Blackpool, which was absolutely unbelievable. He just volleyed it in the top corner. It was honestly, it was unbelievable. And like for me, like Carl Robinson, what a human being that bloke is. I mean, we talk about how good of a football manager he is, but like his words when he paid tribute to Joey like hit me hard, because obviously like Oxford fans said that Joey Beecham was good enough to play for England, but Robinson's like, well, he played for his England, and his England was Oxford United, and like the fact that Carl Robinson's he's sort of been through a tough time really as Oxford manager, and the fact that since he's managed the club, obviously Oxford pretty much lost 3 legends of the club, that being Jim Smith, Mickey Lewis, and obviously now unfortunately Joey Beecham, and that's but just the way he like speaks about it is brilliant, and even he said like Saturday's win was for Joey, and that, and like
Carl Robinson, he talks a lot, but I think he's got everything spot on in the last week. Like the pitch, the tone, everything has been spot on by Carl Robinson, and I think we're very lucky to have him as a manager.
I think he's grown up quite a lot as he's been whilst he's been Oxford manager. I was sceptical when they signed him because, particularly back when he was Milton Keynes Don's manager, he had a reputation for being a bit of a knob. I remember there was one time. The only reason I remember this is because my dad's a Coventry City fan, and MK Dons played Coventry City. And they beat MK Dons, and Carl Robinson came out and said, "Oh, well, they got one of the biggest budgets in the league. They're a massive club, blah blah blah." Coventry have no budget. They are notorious for their owners having
a lack
no
of
money
budget.
to invest. They sap as much money as they can from the club and put nothing in. So he's got a bit of a reputation for, like you say, being outspoken and potentially not hitting the nail on the head. But I think he's grown up quite a lot and really honed his PR skills since he's been at Oxford.
Whoever the PR person is at Oxford United, fair play.
It's like it was also like beautiful scenes as well that he took both of Joey's daughters around the stadium for a lap of honour, and he was like there with them, and that like I said, he is just a wonderful bloke, to be honest, Carl Robinson. I know especially Charlton fans would disagree with that. But from what Robinson's done at Oxford and what he said, and that like he's just brilliant.
Yeah, he's been. I was also similar to Ed, very sceptical of sort of who he was as a manager before Oxford. Very outspoken, sort of bit of a S-house as a manager. But he's one of those where you hate him if he's not your manager, but if he's your manager, you love him. Very similar to some footballers, I think, as well. And he's sort of the managerial version of that. But Ed, do you think this season is the season Oxford United get promoted?
I hope so.
I bloody hope so.
I would be really concerned if it's not this year, because I think there's a few players who are good enough to play above League One and need the club to match that ambition. And I think it could be a testing time. I thought the same thing when they lost in the playoff final, but luckily they managed to keep hold of people like Cameron Brannigan. I think the club needs to move forward, I think they've done very well because obviously we came from non-league and then League Two and now League One. We've progressed quite nicely, and they've maintained their level. They're at a level where they're comfortable in League One. I don't think they're too good to go down. And for a couple of years, they've not quite been there because there's some big clubs in League One.
League One is it's a lot of fallen giants.
Really tricky one, yeah.
Really tricky league.
But I think they've now got themselves to a level where if they can put consistent results together, they're right up there with one of the best teams in League One. It's just whether they can get it over the line.
I don't know if Rotherham are so far ahead, and Wigan have about 20 games in hand at the top.
Yeah, you look at some of the other clubs as well, like Plymouth, who were great at the start of the season, weren't they? They got a couple of games in hand. Yeah. Sheffield Wednesday,
MK are up there.
Club. Yeah, Sunderland. Yeah, you look at some of the teams in League One: Ipswich, Bolton, Portsmouth.
I feel that for me, I've always thought the Championship's the hardest division is one of the hardest divisions, I think, in terms of a lot of the clubs are big clubs in there, but League One is a very probably the most difficult league to get out of. I think it's so hard. We've scored the most goals by a long shot, but we're like 13 points or whatever behind Rotherham, and it's a tough league. And I touch wood, I just don't want to lose another playoff final. Who knows? But we'll see. I saw a stat earlier. Since the beginning of last season, only City have scored more than us in the league, or ever, like in all competitions or whatever it was. I don't know. And you just don't get that. Ipswich fans called us boring at the start of the season. So that's funny. But anyway, let's leave Oxford United there, because hopefully the next time we talk about Oxford United, we could be higher up the league, higher than fourth. But anyway, let's talk about the Premier League as our final sort of topic for the day. I definitely want to touch upon one thing, which is definitely not Brighton losing at home to Villa. Definitely not that. But I want to talk about Marcelo Bielsa, who was obviously sacked as Leeds manager, which is... I didn't think that would happen, if I'm being honest. I think I might have said on a pod before about... I think we discussed Everton and Leeds being very close to that relegation zone, and I said Everton won't get relegated because they will sack their manager and they'll get someone else in. And they'll get a new manager bounce, etc., and they'll be safe. I was very worried about Leeds because I was like, I don't think they'd sack Bielsa, and they'd rather go down with him than let him go or sack him, or whatever. But they obviously have. I still think that's the wrong decision. I stand by the fact that Bielsa, Leeds were a bit of I don't want to say a joke club and offend all the Leeds fans, but to see them in the Championship and not get out and try and fail was quite funny to people who don't like Leeds or whatever. But Marcelo Bielsa got the city to fall in love with football and Leeds United again, and they play some fantastic football. They still do, and the fact that they've had a lot of injuries this year, they've lost pretty much the spine of their team, or the spine of their team's not been fit this year. I think in the last 10 games, they've played pretty much all of the top 7, I'm pretty sure, without a full squad. And I don't know, I just feel Bielsa, I felt he'd done enough to at least see the season out, regardless of whether Leeds finished. But I think football is... You can't go on nostalgia and credit and things like that.
Yeah.
Ed, let's talk Bielsa.
Yeah, I think you touched on it there. The injuries they've had, they've all been big injuries, haven't they? Yeah. Patrick Bamford, who they relied so heavily on for goals, out pretty much all season. That they've been relying on Rafinha heavily. But at the same time, he's been very stubborn in that he's wanted them to play a certain way and expected the players that came in to fill those voids to do the same job, and they had to hit the ground running and they didn't. There's also been some comments made by pundits that they didn't show any respect to their opponents. I think that's potentially been the case over the last sort of 5-6 games. I think they've conceded like 20 goals or something ridiculous.
They conceded the most goals in a month, in the shortest month of the year,
which is mad. But I think that is a big criticism of Bielsa, that he doesn't adapt his playing style to to be a bit more cagey and not part of the bus, but don't concede. Whereas they are just 100 mile-an-hour team all the time, and it leaves them very vulnerable and open. So yeah, it will be an interesting one to see who they get in. I know they're linked with Jesse March. I don't even know. Chris, how do you say his name?
Yeah, I think it's Marsh, because obviously they're playing off the whole Marsh in on together, which is just cringeworthy. I'm sorry.
I'm on board with it. I'm on board with it. I mean, Chris. I mean, did you? I think I shared the Keys and Gray. Richard. God. I mean, I can't even.
Pain.
I think one of them.
How dare
said,
you say their names?
How one of them said, when you get someone called like Jesse Marsh instead of Sam Allardyce, you're asking for trouble. Someone who doesn't know the Premier League. It's like, I hate that argument so much. Doesn't know the Premier League. Like, it's like it's an alien. It's just like, I don't know what the Premier League's like. Football's not that different. And I don't know, Chris, who is Leeds' next manager?
I think it will be Jesse Marsh, because I think he has been talking to him. And that obviously it's an interesting one. I know Barnes will be massively happy with that, because he
loves him. He absolutely loves him.
He's been advocating for Jesse Marsh. He's been like the biggest fan. He's a massive Jesse Marsh fanatic. He is. I mean, it's interesting because he was at Leipzig for 5 months, and it was kind of a similar problem to what Leeds are having now, in the fact that Leipzig were shipping like too many goals under him. So, but you never know. He could be the right fit to Leeds. But on Bielsa, like you touched upon, like the job he's done at Leeds is just absolutely incredible. I mean,
the journey's been great for him, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the journalists that like focuses on Leeds, I can't remember who their name is, but I think he put it like perfectly, like Leeds like massively like uncontrollable mess pretty much. And like Bielsa, like uncontrollable. He's called El Loco for a reason.
Yeah,
you don't know what he's going to do, but like they both just come together and just merged like perfectly, pretty much. I mean, all right. You could argue like the first season, obviously they did kind of bottle the playoffs a bit, but it is a sense that they managed to bounce back and get back into get promotion back to the Prem. And like you said, the style of football they played under Bielsa, and the fact that. Not only that, he was willing to give youngsters a chance, whereas other managers were moaning about, we've got too many injuries, COVID cases, postponed games.
Didn't moan, did he?
You never once hear any moaning coming out of Bielsa, or his interpreter's mouth, for that matter. Like,
gonna miss the
interpreter as well. But in a way, it was a bit sad when like they announced like
it was sad.
It reminded me of when Eddie Howe left Bournemouth. Like they've been on this great journey together. They've gone from
also Ranieri for Leicester.
From Leicester, But you feel sad because they've done so much good together, but it's probably time to go.
As you said, Chris, it was like a perfect maelstrom of Leeds' chaos and Bielsa's
two wrong
chaos.
and made a right.
Yeah, and a high press sort of monster, or Gangnam press, if you're Stephen Warnock.
Your Gangnam style football.
My mate Sai will not be happy.
I do want to touch upon Richard Keys and Andy Gray's stupid comments.
Please do,
because that's the thing. What are you going to do? You're going to go from a high pressing system under Bielsa to absolute S-House sit behind the ball, Sam Allardyce style lump football.
I'd love to see that though. I'd love to see Sam Allardyce with a high press team and see how he can just completely demoralise them.
Sam Allardyce trying to teach Rodrigo to hold the ball up and be a target man.
Teach him to be Kevin Nolan.
Corners. What's corners?
But those two both belong back in the 1990s. Both Keys and Gray.
That's why they're on BN Sports.
That is. And Sam, like Owen pointed out yesterday, Sam Allardyce did such a good job at West Brom, didn't he, keeping them up last season?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the day that the managerial merry-go-round is rid of itself of Sam Allardyce will be a good day. I think Pardew's finally fallen off. Pulis has fallen off.
Yeah, Mark Hughes has gone back down to League Two.
That's huge for Bradford, by the way.
Yeah. That is a good. To be fair, that is a good appointment for Bradford, and I was very surprised by that.
I don't know what they're paying him. I don't know. I don't know what they've given him. Like a year's supply of like, I don't know what crisps he likes. Maybe Monster. No, he wouldn't like Monster Munch. What crisp would Mark Hughes like?
I reckon he's a
British
ready
crisps.
salted kind of man.
Yeah, nothing. No.
Cheese and onion, maybe.
Yeah,
I reckon
I'd
he'd
say
like cheese and onion.
Yeah,
I'd reckon cheese and onion. Yeah. Gosh, well, didn't think we'd get into the eating habits of Mark Hughes. Anything else that you wanted to talk about in terms of Premier League over the weekend?
Can I just quickly touch upon obviously the brilliant return of Christian Eriksen, and obviously the whole stadium like obviously giving a massive standing ovation.
That's a lovely story.
Again, it's another. We've talked about quite a lot of incredible stories on this pod today, but obviously with Eriksen, obviously suffering that cardiac arrest and pretty much thinking that he was never going to return, to football again. To all of a sudden, February.
What's that, 6 months later?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, he's back on the pitch doing what he loves, and that it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
It is phenomenal, and
he had a decent game.
Yeah,
by all accounts.
Yeah, well, considering Brentford went down to 10 men as well that game, I mean it's another huge win for Newcastle, isn't it? And you got to give credit to Eddie Howe. Like, it's a brilliant transformation. Like, you look at Newcastle under Bruce, you thought, they've not got a chance of staying up. And even when Eddie Howe first went in, he was a bit like, Eddie Howe's going to have to do a lot of work here to get this team going. But,
and he's doing a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the recruitment. It was very good in January. Joe Linton's
come out of nowhere.
Yeah. Pretty much had a renaissance, as they say. Obviously, he's getting the best out of like Ryan Fraser. I mean, Ryan Fraser didn't really do much in a Newcastle shirt since he's been there, but ever since Eddie Howe's come in, he's like, right, I'm going to play you to your strength, Ryan, and he's getting the best out of Fraser, and that. So, like, fair play to Newcastle. I mean, it is hotting up down there in the relegation battle, isn't it? Because obviously you got Newcastle pulling away. I think Burnley are like the second informed team down there. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they're getting a few good results and getting a good run going. Obviously, you got Everton and Leeds getting dragged down back into it. But obviously, Watford picked up a big point against Manchester United. Which some would argue that was why I got very drunk Saturday. I was able to celebrate on that massive point for Watford, and I think I've looked stupid in the fact that I said Norwich are going to stay up and they lost again. So
I still think they could stay up.
Yeah, they're going in the right direction. I say that I'm just looking at their form table and they've lost the last three. But
Brentford are just not playing. They've not won in 6 or 7, have they?
No, yeah, Brentford as well. Yeah,
Brentford. Yeah, like you said, I think the whole Premier League is on a knife edge at the minute in so many ways.
The title race has come back on,
unbelievable relegation scrap. You've got, like you said, Liverpool potentially back in the race for the title, and then top 4. Nobody seems to want it.
I think I would argue that there's probably only with about 10 games ish to go. There's only like 3 or 4 teams I think that don't have anything to play for, really.
Do you think?
I think Chelsea don't really have anything to play for. I think they'll finish top 4. They won't win the league. They're going to stay 3rd, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't think Brighton are going to, sadly, as sad as it is to say, I don't think Brighton are going to get into Europe. I don't think Southampton are either. Neither are Palace and Villa. I don't think they've anything.
Southampton are on a run at the minute, though.
They really are. Unbeaten in the last at least 6 games because the BBC Sport app doesn't tell me any further than 6. And Leicester are only 6 points clear of the relegation zone.
Interesting.
Very interesting. But it's livened up. I thought it was a bit of a procession with City, but they've lost and drawn a game in the last 6, and now it's all open again.
Although, speaking of City, I know we have briefly touched on it. That was an absolute joke of a decision. How that penalty has not been given, I do not know. What is going through Chris Kavanagh's head in, video assistant referee? It's the most blatant handball you'll ever see on a football pitch.
The only thing I can think of is that he didn't see the angle that's going around on social media where it is so clearly hitting his arm. I know. How would he not? Surely he has every angle.
And you can tell with Diaz's reaction because he just kicks it straight out of play. He scuffs it as well. He's obviously rattled.
He looked sheepish after he'd done it and that.
Yeah.
And surely, if you're not sure, surely you'd be like, you'd say to the on-field ref, I think it was Portierney, weren't it? Surely
yeah.
you'd say to him, can you come to the screen and have a look at this? Because how they haven't come to the right decision in that. I mean, I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist here, but it is certainly interesting the decisions that have gone in City's favour. Because there was that one against Newcastle, wasn't there, where Ederson completely wiped Ryan Fraser out, and that wasn't given as a penalty.
Yeah.
Like, how was that not given as a penalty? I mean, the one against Arsenal, you could argue that wasn't clear and obvious, but that's the whole thing with VAR. It should be overturning clear and obvious errors. That on Saturday was one of the biggest clear and obvious errors you ever point out.
Yeah,
on a
and I still
pitch.
think that the refereeing, all the referees are hiding behind the VAR, whereas everybody who knows the game is well aware that VAR isn't the issue, it's the people operating it that's the issue. And I just don't think there's any accountability for their mistakes ever. They never come out and apologize. They never really drop down a league or two, do they? Because there's only X amount of referees that have got enough experience to referee in the Premier League. I can't remember a time where a Premier League referee has had to drop down to the Championship or League One for a couple of weeks.
I saw comments of Frank Lampard's comments basically at the weekend, and a lot of people saying like, he's going to get fined for this, but he needs to say it, etc. And I agree with that. But why should he get fined? Why are referees so untouchable? Like, I'm not advocating they should be sort of psychologically analysed of every single decision that they make, but there needs to be some sort of accountability to their decisions, and they're a bit ironically, they are protected, right? And they don't protect players and things like that. And it's a very interesting.
That's their job.
That's their job. But just to carry on, Ed. Sorry,
I was just gonna say I get why they're so heavily protected, because it's not a very nice job, is it? They're constantly scrutinised by everybody, every player, every coach. Hates
but a bit
referees.
Of transparency wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Bit of accountability, bit of transparency. Maybe just being able to listen to why they've made the decision. The communication that they have, what they're talking about.
Because at the end of the day, we're guessing. We're guessing.
Why
didn't he give Ruben Diaz's handball? If he came out and said, "I didn't give it because I didn't see it. Sadly, just didn't see the angle."
Yeah.
Then we can all say, well, it's the wrong decision, but you can only make a decision based on what he saw. And I think people would be fine with that, even though it's like the wrong decision. We've got
you can see where
the right way.
Their logic. Yeah.
But
then the issue is if you open up those communication lines and you start to hear what they're saying, I think that'll open up a whole can of worms, because I think they're trying to protect referees, and so they don't have to be accountable.
We are going to get a no Mikey no in
no Michael.
No. Right. That's an F1 reference there.
No Paul Tierney, no. It's not right.
I will finally, just to finish off this segment, Jesse March has been appointed the Leeds manager as of 17 minutes ago. So there we go.
I can see Ash Barnes just taking his shirt off, swinging it round.
That's why he's not here. He's running around Leeds.
Ash Barnes has got an out of office on for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh God, well, there you go, Leeds. And bye Bielsa, the early bath for Bielsa, and we'll see how Jesse Marsh can do, how he can help Leeds maybe not get relegated, because I like watching Leeds. They're good value.
Has time gone?
We lost Kieran.
Has he just abruptly left?
I can hear you guys.
He's back.
He's back.
Hello?
Yeah,
I can hear you guys.
Hello.
That was so weird. I think. Hello. So
video,
can you hear me?
The video's a little bit behind, but we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Oh, that's annoying. Okay. I just wanted to...
he's gone again.
He's gone again.
I just wanted to... It's a bit like that. Have you seen that joke online, Chris, when people were starting to work from home and they were like, when you don't want to present on a Zoom call, and be like, yes, if you could just turn to... and then you freeze and don't say anything. That's what Kieran's doing.
Yeah. But then it doesn't work because then someone will like walk past them, or like their pet will walk past them. It's like
The fans go in on the ceiling. He's clearly not frozen.
Yeah. You're clearly not frozen. You're clearly just doing that just to not work, pretty much.
Yeah. I don't even know. Can we even close the thing without Kieran? I don't think we can we?
I don't think we can.
We could just leave and then just let all the viewers and listeners watch as Kieran fails to restart his Wi-Fi. Or he's gone on mute.
He's muted himself.
Yeah. Oh, this is fun.
This has got to be the strangest ending to the pod that's ever been.
Yeah. I suppose what we could just carry on talking about Everton, because I know Everton have complained formally, haven't they? To the Premier League? Oh, he's on his phone.
My phone.
I don't think we can end the pod without you.
Yeah, I can try and end it. But...
Can you do it on there?
Yeah.
Or can you just leave?
I'll do it on here. It's fine. I'll try and sort it, but that's not ideal, was it? No.
Well, you can do an outro. Go on.
My outro is thank you very much for listening, and sorry this has been an absolute chaotic end. This is our tribute to Marcelo Bielsa. But yeah, please, if you enjoyed the content, do be sure to like and subscribe. We've lost a subscriber, as we said, so we're fuming. So what I urge you to do is, if you have a brother or a sister or a mother or a father or whatever, or a dog that has a YouTube account, just go on their device and then just subscribe. That would help our numbers, right? So that goes to you and Ed as well, Chris, to do that. So I'll show you what's happening on my... Can I show you what's happening on my screen here? I don't think I can. I can't flip my camera around. That's really annoying.
Somebody check his hard drive.
So, I don't know if you can see that, but it's just like, you keep like coming up. Like, look at that. It's just carnage.
Oh, no.
So I'll
Somebody check his hard drive.
Stop it, lad. But no, thank you very much, and like and subscribe, and yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Bye bye. We'll try and end this.
It's a waving goodbye.
Waving goodbye. Can I end this? Who knows?